videos. They also have an Ancient Origins magazine. So there's a lot of stuff to check out there. So let me start right here and begin. There are many disagreements among scholars regarding historical events and beliefs. However, there is a consensus that most historians follow a mainstream view of world history. At the same time, there are also those who challenge the mainstream view. A rather provocative example of this would be the ideas of the now deceased eccentric Swedish-speaking Finnish tour guide Ior Bak, born Boror Holger Sveldin, who among other things claimed that humans existed on Earth 50 million years ago and originated in what is now Finland.
Yep.
Although it is always possible that the mainstream is mistaken, the Ior Bak saga does not stand up very well to scrutiny. The mainstream view of human history is that anatomically modern humans evolved around 200,000 years ago in Eastern Africa. The earliest evidence of art and religious expression occur in the archaeological record maybe 70,000 years ago, also in Africa. And the earliest agricultural communities emerged about 10,000 years ago in the Middle East. The earliest civilizations sprang up in the river valleys of the Tigris and Euphrates, the Indus River Valley, and the Yellow and Yangtze rivers by 5,000 years ago. Modern humans did not reach Finland, according to the mainstream view, until after the end of the last glacial maximum about 11,000 years ago, and civilization didn't reach Finland until late antiquity or the early Middle Ages. Ior Bak, on the other hand, claimed that his family, within their traditions, preserved the true history of the world, which had been suppressed by institutions such as the Roman Catholic Church for at least a millennium. According to Ior Bak's story, humans originated tens of millions of years ago on a continent situated over the North Pole. It was here that the first human societies emerged, which would become the foundation for all later civilizations. According to Ior Bak, the Ice Age began around 50 million years ago, shortly after humans appeared. Ior Bak's explanation of human evolution is also different. He claimed that humans were the result of some sort of combination of goats and monkeys. The exact location where humans first originated, according to the saga, is a land called Udenma, or Udenma, which supposedly inspired the story of the Garden of Eden, is now in Finland. The Aesir and the Vanir. Before the global ice age, humanity was divided into two parts, the Aesir and the Vanir. The Aesir were the first people, and they lived in the Udenma proper. The Vanir lived outside of Udenma and were produced later through breeding programs. When the Ice Age began, the Aesir became trapped in Udenma. It was surrounded by ice sheets for millions of years, until 10,000 years ago when the ice retreated. After the ice retreated, according to Ior Bak, the Aesir made contact with the human cultures which had developed across the globe. According to this lore, as the ice sheets melted, these cultures became in danger of floods. The Aesir, in response, built boats for humans and animals to protect them during the flooding. The story of these floods and the building of these boats is alleged to be the basis for the story of Noah's flood. After the catastrophe, the Aesir did what they could to help rebuild civilization by sending teachers to every major civilization to teach them the values of Udenma and Odin, or Eden. This apparently had only moderately successful results. The Aesir were also behind the establishment of civilization in Europe, and the religious values of the Aesir became prevalent in the pagan religions of old, the pre-Christian Europe. These traditions and the Aesir continued in some form or another until the coming of Christianity. According to Ior Bak, the church suppressed these traditions so that only two families remained who had knowledge of these traditions, one of which was the Bakstroms, from which Ior Bak claimed his family descended. Ior Bak believed himself to be a prophet who was appointed 10,000 years ago to restore the true understanding of human history when mankind was ready. Now, he died in 2010, but many of his followers are still committed to transmitting the saga that they believe to be truth, which has been misjudged by the academic establishment. Could Ior Bak's account of world history be right? What makes Ior Bak's account so extraordinary is that it wouldn't just mean history as we know it is wrong, but that much of the physical and social sciences, including geology, paleontology, evolutionary biology, archaeology, and even linguistics are wrong as well. While this is certainly possible, it is something that is, simply by its nature, unlikely and would require a lot of convincing proof.
Or any.
Yeah, any.
Any
So
would be a start.
Eorbach claims. Eorbach claims modern humans first appeared before 50 million years ago, something for which there is currently no indisputable evidence. The only primates during that time which there is fossil data were some of the early prosimians. No apes or monkeys appeared until the Oligocene, which was 35 to 23 million years ago. And even the earliest bipedal ape fossils are no more than 7 million years old.
It's awesome. We're based on creatures that didn't even exist at the time.
The oldest fossil records resembling anatomically modern humans are a fraction of that age, only about 195,000 years old. If we consider phylogenetic evidence, the date is pushed back to perhaps 290,000 years ago. To be fair, there was a recent finding of an almost modern-looking skull in Morocco dated to 300,000 BC, but this is still much too young to support anything like Eorbach's story of human origins. Also, the most recent cycle of ice age started about 2.5 million years ago during the late Pliocene. Over the past 2 million years or so, there have been alternating periods consisting of glacial maxima, ice ages, lasting about 100,000 years, and interglacial periods where glaciers retreat, resulting in a temporary warming of the planet for a period of about 10,000 years. We are currently in an interglacial period, which is why Europe and North America are not encased in ice. The most recent cycle of ice ages before the present one ended 260 million years ago, during the Permian period. There is no geological evidence of a major glacial event at 50 million years ago. In fact, paleoclimate data shows the planet was warmer than average 50 million years ago. Eorbach's view of human evolution is also different from what we know from phylogenetics and fossil evidence. Goats and humans are on a separate evolutionary line that diverged 80 to 100 million years ago, which means that by 50 million years ago, they would already be along lineages that had diverged and would have been incapable of merging. The only way that the rise of human species could have anything to do with the fusion of ruminants and primates is genetic manipulation by an intelligent agent. Based on our knowledge of humans and goats, there simply isn't a biological or genetic reason to believe that this ever happened. Humans do have traits in common with goats, but they have just as many traits in common with cattle or horses. So unless his supporters want to argue for those connections, Bach's views cannot be defended on that basis. His most problematic errors may be in the field of linguistics. Eorbach creates several etymologies of words that simply don't stand up to scrutiny. For example, he claims the word planet comes from the word plan, simply meaning plan, and et, which Bach claims means family, and says that planet thus means family plan to make the world whole.
This is my favorite part.
Practically all scholars agree that the word planet comes from the Greek word planets, which means wander, and is based on the belief that the planets were wandering stars as opposed to the apparent unmoving stars which appear to be embedded in the celestial sphere. He also claims the word history comes from his story, by which he appears to mean the story from the perspective of men, and the word mystery comes from her miss story, meaning most likely the story from the perspective of women. However, the word history comes from a Greek word that essentially means inquiry, and mystery comes from another Greek word which means hidden or secret. Many of the etymologies he suggests are not only demonstrably false, but some would only work if we were to assume that the ancients spoke modern English. It could be claimed that there is an effort among linguists to cover up the true etymology of words, but this is just a conspiracy theory that cannot be proven or disproven. All the errors in other fields cast doubt on the reliability of Eorbach when he speaks about history and archaeology as well. There is little solid evidence that supports Bach's claims that Finland was the center of civilization before the Middle Ages, or that it was inhabited by modern humans before the Paleocene. The only evidence of human settlement of Finland before the end of the last interglacial is a possible Neanderthal site dating to 125,000 BC. Is it possible that Eorbach is onto something?
Of course. Ancient astronauts believe or whatever.
Many errors he makes across multiple fields calls his reliability as a preserver of ancient secrets into question. For this reason, it is more likely that the mainstream view, despite its admitted flaws, is closer to the correct view of history, at least closer than the Bach saga. Now, this article takes the position that Eeyore Bach was full of shit. And
Well, you know what? He could have gotten like one thing right.
Right? You could have done some research.
I didn't hear about the part where he said that the Garden of Eden was originally under Antarctica on a continent, but there is no continent under not Antarctica, under the Arctic, under the North Pole. But there's no continent there; it's all water.
You know, just the fact that he, for lack of better description, pulled all this out of his ass. He probably really believed it, though. You know. I mean, all this stuff is so easily checked. Well, most of it is. Like the climate. And just the fact that he didn't do that. It's like, yeah, he probably really believed it. He probably just was...
You know what? He was probably used to dealing with people that were very uneducated and would believe just about anything. So long as you sounded like you were the authority on the topic.
That's a good theory, too, Fed. Yeah.
You know, I first came across this, the Bach saga here. I was reminded of the Fomenko new chronology. For those of you who aren't familiar with that, there was a man named Fomenko, who's Russian. And he came up with a pseudo-historical theory that argued that conventional chronology of Middle Eastern and European history was fundamentally flawed. And that the events attributed to the civilizations of the Roman Empire, ancient Greece, and ancient Egypt actually occurred during the Middle Ages more than 1,000 years later. And that's what got me thinking about Bach right here.
Right.
Right.
Makes sense.
These two connections
Yeah.
between the new chronology and the Bach saga. Both two men who believed history was wrong.
And he's the one who thought that like, what was it? 1,000 years were missing from the timeline or something, or added in.
That is correct. He believed that 1,000 years was missing from the timeline. That all the events between 800 and 1,000 AD took place between 1,000 and 1,500 AD. All of ancient history was folded into the Middle Ages, and the written history of humankind only goes back as far as AD 800. So that was Fomenko's claims. And as far and outlandish as Fomenko's claims were, the Bach saga is definitely more off the wall than that. So let me get a little more into this. I have another article here by Les Whale. The Ancient Time Capsule, Bach Saga. A well-known and respected Finnish historian, Eeyore Bach, was born on the 17th of January 1942. His father, Knut Victor Bachström, died on 11th of May 1942. From that time, only 3 of the Bach family remained: Eeyore, his mother Rhea, and his sister Rachel. From the age of 7, Rhea and Rachel had Eeyore sit with them every day to listen and learn the family traditions of the Bach saga. Eeyore was not allowed to ask questions through these sessions, as it is considered that by listening, one learns more than talking. According to Eeyore, the saga is based largely on the teachings of sound, which must be heard and experienced, and has therefore been passed down orally from generation to generation in this way. Each descendant was taught from the age of 7 to the age of 27, taking a full 20 years to comprehend and master this knowledge. Thus, the saga was transmitted to Eeyore through the years 1949 to 1969. After his father died, a man named Boror Gustav Bertlin Svedlin adopted Eeyore, and Eeyore's name was changed to Boror Hoglor Betril Svedlin. Svedlin died in 1950 when Eeyore was 8 years old. In March of 1968, Eeyore reclaimed his original family name. As a young man, Eeyore gained employment as the head guide of the museum fortress of Vapurori in Finland. Each year, Eeyore spent time in Goa, India, putting together the historic theme for the following season of the museum. In the summer of 1968, Eeyore made his first academic presentation at the museum. In the years that followed, he became a well-known and respected historian and was involved in the production and development of a number of television documentaries. In 1984, he began to relate his family history and the details of the Bach saga. When Eeyore first began to release the information, it was met with a great deal of disbelief, controversy, and accusations that the saga was just a set of stories. Many of these people are now reconsidering their positions due to the astounding and significant discoveries over the past few years, confirming the saga is indeed based on fact and not fiction. In June of 1999, Eeyore Bach was attacked by a man in his sister's apartment in Helsinki. Eeyore was stabbed in the back a number of times. His heart stopped for 10 minutes. Paramedics managed to revive him, but the attack left him a quadriplegic. Now, nearly 3 years later, Eeyore can drink tea with very little assistance and continues his daily talk and release of the Block Saga material. His mind is still very clear and he still smiles, even though nearly all he has been taken from him. Now, obviously, this is from before he died in 2010. The science has now come to the understanding that our origins come from light and sound. According to the Bach Saga, our civilization has only just re-evolved to the level of basic understanding. It is therefore understandable that the Bach Saga should come to light at this time. The saga deals with a sound system that was utilized and understood in complete detail many millennia ago. A technology based on light and sound that also developed a spiritual understanding of how to work with nature orally or naturally. But somewhere in the darkest mists of our past, that knowledge was lost, and therefore so was our ability to utilize it. The saga, given as an oral transmission, conveyed and maintained in correct form via the ring.
Fuel scoop disengaged. Frameshift drive charging.